Welcome to Transcendent. I'm Raya, and I'm the daughter.
And I'm Joe, and I'm the dad. Today is November 20th, Monday, our normal podcast time. But it's not our normal mood time. This is something that's special in our time period. This is November 20th is the Transgender Day of Remembrance. This occurs every year and has occurred every year since what year, Raya?
I believe 1999.
Yes. And we are, I guess the word isn't celebrating. The word is remembering. We're remembering those who have been killed because of transphobia.
It's a important day. It's a somber day. It's disappointing that we still have so much transphobia. But it's important that we recognize how bad things still are, so that, because yes, there's positives, and normally you and I want to focus on the positives. But yet, here are people who, through no fault of their own, just because of who they are, were killed by people who thought that they didn't deserve to exist.
If you're listening to this in the morning, today there will be the reading of the names of those who have been killed since October 1st of last year up until September 30th of this year. We don't have that exact number, but we do have the exact number from 2022. And that was 375. 375 people lost their lives for no reason at all. That is inexcusable. There are people out there who possibly have been contemplating this. This is not a podcast for the LGBTQ community only. This is not a podcast for the cisgender family only. This is a podcast for everyone. Everyone needs to learn what I've learned. I have learned that. I've been on the other side. Now, I'll admit, I never considered any violent action or anything, but I've been on the other side thinking that this was not something that was acceptable behavior, or maybe something that was abnormal. Neither of those things are true. This is normal behavior. I've learned that. I don't expect you to know that right now, but if you stick with us, you'll discover it's factual. This is normal behavior. Not just in the human world, in the animal world as well. And for people to consider violence against people that don't agree with him is a sad situation. And it's because sometimes they think a little bit about it, they hear a little bit about it, maybe they're influenced by other people who build it up to make you aware that in your mind this is wrong. It's not wrong. It's normal. And we're dedicated to saving lives. So I'm going to ask you today, if you know someone out there that isn't affirming, and everybody knows somebody that isn't affirming, let me suggest that these podcasts that we've been doing are podcasts that can be shared. You can share these with other people. So you can walk up and say, hey, Dad, I'd like you to listen to this one. Or, hey, Mom, here's something I've been listening to that I think is really relevant. And it helped me to understand how things are, how things really are. And I want to share that with you. So today, we recognize those in just the past year that have been killed for no reason at all. And if you can do something out there to save lives, one comment at a time, you need to do that.
There's a defense legally that people will use sometimes. Someone that has committed one of these murders. And it's disgusting. It's known as the transgender panic defense. And the idea is, well, I didn't know that they were transgender, and when I found out, what could I do? And we all know that song, Lola, and
Yes.
how it's a whole song that and
Wait a minute. We don't all know that. There are some people here that have been born in the 60s and 70s and don't know that.
it created a culture where the entire song is about the singer
Yeah.
finds this girl Lola, and he's kind of into her, but he doesn't understand why she has such a deep voice. And then when they get together, he realizes, oh, because she's transgender.
The song is over 50 years old.
There are movies that are out there that are like that, like the Crying Game,
Yeah.
and there's a play called M. Butterfly. And the idea on all of these is that a straight man was fooled by a transgender woman. And it's that idea that has created this, that somebody says, oh, see, look, this was so gross, and I was tricked into doing this thing, and that's my excuse. And unfortunately, that has gotten some people leniency, or gotten them off from their from paying for the crimes that they've committed. And that's really why Transgender Day of Remembrance exists.
And it just doesn't occur in one place. It occurs all over, and not just in the U.S. It is an international day of transgender remembrance. Mostly it's recognized by the governments in both the U.S. and in Canada. I am not aware that it's recognized by the governments in any other countries, but I'm sure that's going to continue to spread, and that will happen. You could probably find some information on that right now if you Google in your city. Where do you happen to be? Are you in Kansas City, or are you in Sacramento, or are you in Gainesville, Florida? Google the Transgender Day of Remembrance, and there might be something happening in your town, in your area.
The president first recognized the Transgender Day of Remembrance on 2020 when they issued a statement. Well, it was actually they issued a statement the following year, but they first recognized it in 2020 officially, and then the next year they said at least 46 transgender Americans were killed by acts of fatal violence this year. That was early in 2021. Reporting that they were very concerned about it. And it's good to see more eyes on this and people recognizing.
We are coming off of something else that we should have probably mentioned to you earlier, but there is also a Transgender Awareness Week. That just finished yesterday. That goes from November 13th to November 19th. And then it culminates with the Transgender Day of Remembrance, that which is happening today. So that is something we need to call everyone's attention to. It's tough for me to talk about this because it is just it's a meaningless act. I mean, what do they think is going to happen? If you decide to destroy someone's life, is that going to change the movement? Is that going to force people to live a difficult life? Is it is that going to force people to not want to search for their own happiness? It is inexcusable.
I did a search to see, and one of the websites that's really critical here, you can go to hrc.org. That is the Human Rights Coalition. And there's a page where you can see the pictures of the individuals that have been murdered. And these are just, they're beautiful people, just absolutely beautiful people. And it just breaks your heart to see the number of people whose lives were cut short for no fault of their own.
So, what is this previous week? What is Transgender Awareness Week? Transgender Awareness Week is a week, this past week, when transgender people and their allies take action to bring attention to the communities by educating the public about who transgender people are. That's what we do in every one of these podcasts. Not just trans, but the entire LGBTQ community. Who are these people? They're people like you and me. They're people like, especially like you. You're listening. They're people like you. They're people like me. They are just normal people. And it's kind of like deciding that you're going to not tolerate people who root for the Bears. And so, therefore, they're the enemy, and you're going to go out and you're going to kill people who are fans of the Bears. Being a Packer fan, I understand that, but you understand what I'm saying. It's a unfortunate situation. So, the vigil that's commemorated all the transgender people who lives were lost to violence that year and began the worldwide observance that's become the annual Transgender Day of Remembrance. And that's what's happened. But the Public Awareness Week is sharing stories and experience and advancing advocacy around issues of prejudice or discrimination and violence that affects the transgender community. Now, I can also include in this the rest of the letters in the alphabet, the L, G, B, Q, etc., because there's violence there too. We all know that. There's violence. This happens to be one area that has been particularly hit, but it happens everywhere. And there is no excuse. Folks, you really need to share these podcasts with those who just are not only are they not affirming, they're not accepting, but they're also not understanding. In some ways, I can't say that I fault them because I've been there, but we need to educate them. We need to have them accept and understand this group out here. Those are our loved ones as well.
The Transgender Day of Remembrance was originally founded, we talked about in 1999. I want to talk a little bit about how it was founded. It was created by a group of 3 people together, Gwendolyn Ann Smith, Nancy Nagaroni, and Jahira D'Alto. Now, I don't know if I'm saying their names right. But it was to memorialize 2 black transgender women that had been killed that year. Rita Hester in Allston, Massachusetts, and Chanel Pickett in Watertown, Massachusetts. What happened is that Smith was the first one to notice this. Gwendolyn said she was so surprised that after Hester had died, that people so quickly forgot. And then almost immediately after that, there was another murder at the very same site. And they realized we have an epidemic, we have a problem. And this highlights the fact that violence is disproportionately done to Black trans women. That this, especially, and other racial minorities. Thankfully, for someone like me, I have a lot of protection. As a white trans woman, I don't have to worry. I have a good job and I have a good security, and things are generally pretty good. I have a very supportive father and a very supportive family. That's why we want to bring this out and continue with other people. But so many others do not have a support network like that.
So you want to know what is the current culture for transgender people? There was a Gallup poll done in 2021 that we have the results for. At that time, when that poll was taken, 68% of Americans said they never personally met anyone who is transgender. That means the majority of the public, their education and awareness about transgender people has been informed by more than a century's worth of media, which has an overwhelmingly misrepresented and mischaracterized who trans people are. That's a big part of the problem.
We're finally starting to get some more visibility, that we have some positive role models that are out there, and we have a bit more visibility, but there's still a long ways to go. And that's why we feel that this is important here right now. Transgender Day of Remembrance is an important day. It's important that we recognize that there's still a long way for us to go.
So we ask that you also share with us that you take this Transgender Day of Remembrance and that you recognize it as well and share the concept with other people. If you're a praying person, we ask you to pray. If you're a person that knows someone out there that you know has harbors some hatred toward this group, try to open their minds, look for opportunities to have them be a little bit more accepting. We don't expect people to go from potential murderers to being affirming in a matter of one comment that you make. It doesn't work that way. It takes time, but you have to start somewhere, and we ask that you do that. Start somewhere. Help these people who we really feel need help. They're the people. They're our loved ones too, and these people out there that would consider doing something like that. In my mind, these people are misguided, and they need our help. They need our loving and sharing with them in a way that's going to help them realize that we're all normal. And there's no reason to have a day like today.
Mm-hmm.
To have a day like today is really difficult in itself. To know that we have to have a day to recognize that something like this is happening every single year. It's sad, but that's what it is.
Yeah. And that's all we can do. We pause, we take a moment to stop and reflect. And that's all that we can do, is do what we can to make a difference. And so we're grateful to have you coming here week after week, that you're doing your part to educate yourself and to create positive relationships in your life. This is a little different tone than we're used to.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it reminds us then, as we see the down times, it reminds us of the positive times as well.
We also want to remind you that this podcast is not a podcast that's been funded by anybody. This is a labor of love. We've been doing this because we believe in it. We are saving lives one podcast at a time. So how can you help us? We ask that you share this podcast or any of these podcasts that we're doing with other people that you think will find them helpful. If each of you just shares with one person, it'll help. If you share it with no one, then how do we get the word out? We just ask you to consider right now, who could you share this with your mother? Could you share this with your brother? Could you share this with one of your teachers? Is there somebody out there that needs to hear what we're trying to say, that needs to help us get the word out? If you can help by sharing, we thank you for that.
And we've been grateful for the growth that we've seen. We've been really surprised in a very positive way at the support that we've had. So we
Yes.
thank you so much for coming back week after week.
And we'll see you again right here next Monday morning.